Hey guys, I'm back again. Lou Abikoye, your AWS guy. Today I'll be talking about AWS S3. When it comes to cloud storage, S3 is one of the fastest, well-managed, highly encrypted, and secured cloud storage. You can do versioning, so many things that can help you ensure that your files are safe. And when it comes to managing it, looking at retrieving files very fast, AWS S3 is your guy. You can also use it to build static websites and have it hosted for free. Okay, welcome to Amazon Simple Storage Service S3. Alright, Amazon Simple Storage Service is a cloud object storage service offered by Amazon Web Services. It provides users with the ability to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time, offering high scalability, reliable, fast, and inexpensive storage solution. So S3 stores data in objects within buckets, which are essentially containers for storing data, similar to how files folders work. So just to keep it simple, Amazon has a storage service. You can store any kind of file. So for everything that you store in Amazon storage space is called an object, and what holds the object is called a bucket. So you have a bucket and you drop objects into the bucket. That's the concept of Amazon S3. Now, what are the key features? Buckets and object. S3 stores data as object within the bucket. Global accessibility. So S3 is not restricted to a region or an availability zone that we have in our EC2 instances. It just means that it's a global system. Now, it has security, so there are policies that you must put in place that makes you have the right to access the objects in the bucket. And this security, you are either given a bucket policy or you have an IAM role policies that gives you access to the bucket. And encryption is also enabled to ensure secured access. So data durability is 99.999999. So Amazon has put a very solid infrastructure in place to make sure that your data, your files, and whether media, whether streaming content, whatever you have, are stored securely. And it's a cross-region replication versioning. So it means that while your S3 bucket is assigned to a region, if you create a bucket, it's tied to a region, but you can have cross-region replication and versioning. So create an S3 bucket. It's pretty simple. You just navigate to your AWS console, search for S3, create a bucket, enter a unique name. So no two buckets can bear the same name in the entire AWS infrastructure. You select your region, you give it whatever access you want. If you want it to have a public access, which we'll be looking at, and you create a bucket. So you can upload an object in your S3 bucket, open your newly created bucket, and upload files in it. So while we're looking at that, it's just pretty simple, but we also have a concept with AWS that's very important, which is versioning. Now, versioning in AWS in Amazon S3 is a feature that allows you to preserve, retrieve, and restore every version of every object stored in a bucket. When enabled, S3 automatically keeps multiple versions of an object in the same bucket, even if you overwrite it or delete it. So this is what it is. It means that if you upload a file into an S3 bucket, and for some reason you overwrite the file, so you upload another file that overwrites that file. If you have versioning enabled in your S3 bucket, it just means that that particular file that is being overwritten is not totally overwritten. So it keeps a version of the old file and the new version there. So if for any reason you need to revert to an old version of that file, it is easy. Also, once the file is deleted, it is deleted. However, AWS, because of versioning, you can also revert back. So some form of rollback or failover control. So to enable versioning is just go to the settings, properties in your bucket, and you enable versioning. So these are pretty straightforward. So versioning protects against accidental deletes and overwrites, recover from unintended user action, maintain data history for auditing or backup. You know how it works. When versioning is enabled, every object has a unique version ID. If you upload an object with the same key, S3 creates a new version instead of overwriting it. When you delete an object, S3 adds a delete marker instead of actually removing the data. Now, storage classes and life cycle policies. In S3, you have different classes of storage. So S3 standard for frequently accessed data. I'll just keep it simple. For frequently accessed data, S3 intelligent tier moves object between tiers based on access patterns. So this is like an automated way of the S3 buckets, moving your files to the appropriate class storage. We have S3 standard IA and one zone IA. These are for infrequent access data. Then we have the S3 Glacier and Glacier Deep archive. These are cost efficient long-term archival. So let me just put it simple. The different classes means that if you store a file and you leave it in the class called S3 standard, it means that it will cost you, not like it costs much, but it will cost you more than when you use the S3 Glacier. So for the S3 standard, these are for files that you frequently access, so S3 can return them pretty fast, and you don't have much latency in getting the files out. But when you go as far as S3 Glacier, these are files that you don't need to access frequently. These are files that you've archived, and you just need it to be stored in the S3 bucket. The time you use in returning those files, if you need to retrieve them, takes longer. So S3 standard IA, these are infrequent access data. These are files that, yes, you don't access frequently, but you want a situation whereby you need it to return fast. So you can also set a life cycle policies, meaning that, well, I've uploaded a file to my S3 bucket. By default it's in the S3 standard, but I want to create a life cycle policy such that after 7 days, maybe that file should change its class to the standard AI, and maybe after 90 days it should go to S3 Glacier. Then after like maybe 100 days it goes to the Glacier Deep archive. So what this means is I won't be incurring much cost on files that I don't access frequently, and that's the concept around the storage class and the life cycle. So to move an object to Glacier, you just navigate to the S3 bucket. Under actions, you see change storage, confirm and choose Glacier. Create a life cycle policy. You'll find this under the management tab. Click life cycle rules and click on create rules. Set condition for transition and move the Glacier after, for example, after 30 days. So you can review and save. So for us, I need us to be able to go through the steps of creating a bucket and uploading them and uploading files in them. Then most importantly, one of the things we want to use in this practice is to see how to use S3 to host a static website. So any website that's a pure HTML website and maybe HTML, CSS and JavaScript, you can host them with S3 and it will cost you nothing. So it just means that if I have a website, rather than get a hosting platform, I can always host some static website using S3 bucket as well. So let's just play around the S3 bucket and see how it works. Okay, back to the GitHub environment. You look for the folder S3, that's under the low-AWS, and I have a website file here. This is what we'll be launching to for our static website, and the steps for executing that, I've saved it in this file so you can follow the steps. Pretty easy and straightforward. But before then, let's just go to S3 bucket and see how it works. So at the top search here, I just type S3 and I click on scalable storage in cloud S3. Alright, so while I'm in S3, it's easy. These are other buckets, these are existing buckets in my S3. I just create a new bucket. So I choose the name of the bucket. So the bucket name could be Lu BKT2, and just leave every other thing as default. But block public access settings. So this particular option is to say if I want to unblock public access, because by default it has been checked. We'll come back to that. So bucket versioning, I mentioned versioning. If you want to enable versioning at the moment where you are creating a bucket, this is where you select versioning. You can add your tags and whatever the case may be. Let's see what we have in advanced settings. So pretty much just stick to the default, give it a name, but you can have a name that already exists. So if you try to create a name and it's failing, it means that there's another bucket that bears that name within the AWS infrastructure. So create bucket, and yes, I have my bucket created. My bucket is in this current region, so it means that you have to be in the region where you want your bucket to exist. But you can see that I can also have access to buckets in other region, even though my bucket is tied to a particular region. So I come into the bucket and I can create a folder. I can upload files. So let me just click on upload files. So I can either upload files or I upload a folder. So if I add files, let me just pick up any file on my system. Yep, just pick up the black t-shirt, and I can add another file. Let's say I want to add this document, but let me choose something that is not heavy. Yeah, I can choose this other image and I upload. So these two files have been saved in my S3 bucket. So that's pretty much how to create a bucket and upload files within the bucket. Now there are other things I will need you to look at. So these are the file names, and these are other options you can look at using your S3. So if I click on this file, in order to access this file, I can open it from here to see what the content of the file is. However, AWS gives me unique URLs to those objects. Remember that for every item in a bucket is referred to as object. But however, if I try to visit this URL, it would give me access denied. So you need permissions. You need to enable certain permissions before these files can be accessed publicly. So by that, we'll look at in a subsequent practice. So but what I want us to look at is to refer to other options within the bucket. So this is the properties. You can see all the properties within the bucket. I can now decide to enable versioning. If I click on edit, I can enable versioning for this particular bucket. And if I save, so it means that versioning is enabled. Peradventure, I go into the bucket and I try to upload another file, probably the same file I've uploaded earlier, same file, and I upload. Now while I'm looking at the object, you can see that it has overwritten it and we have the same object there. However, if I show versioning, if I click on this toggle button here to show versioning, this will let me know a file that has a different version. So the same file, but you can see this arrow pointing down, meaning that this is an older version of this file. So if this file were not, if this was not opened, I'll only see the most recent file. But for a file that bears the same name and I had overwritten it, I can see the older version here. Same thing applies to an item that I delete. So once versioning is enabled, rather than the system deleting the file permanently delete, you just create a marker. So the marker is to tell you that I can always go back to the state where that file was before it was deleted. So back to my object, I can't find the file here anymore, but because we have versioning enabled, we can always get back to see that file. But this is a subject of another class. Alright, the next thing we want to do now is to create a static site using S3 bucket. Alright, quickly I create a new bucket, and for the website I want to create, I call it weather born Lou. So this is me trying to give it a unique name. It has to be a different name from your end. Weatherborn Lou is what I have chosen, and I'll block public access settings. So I unblock public access. So I uncheck this. It tells me to acknowledge that I want to make this bucket publicly accessible, and I say yes, and I create the bucket. Now, following the steps in that document, I go into the bucket I just created, weatherborn blue. I have the weatherborn project, so I just go and pretty much this is the project you want to replicate. So I'll suggest you download the repo and get into this bucket. So let's just let me download so while I go straight into so I just want to unzip this. So I'm going straight into my S3 and I find the weatherborn project. So these are the files I want to upload to my S3. So I can either drag them from there, or I search and upload the file. So first of all, I click on uploads, I select files, so I open the folder. So let me just sort by what was just recently added. I go straight into the folder and I select all the files. So these are the website files, and the folder is not selected, and the folder is also inside the weatherborn, that's the assets folder. Then I now add folder, so I select the folder, so meaning I've attached all the files and all the folder that is required in the website. So I upload this file, rather upload the files and folder. So you can see the marker confirming success as these files are being uploaded. Alright, so the files are fully uploaded, and I go back to my bucket. So the next thing is I come straight to properties. So under properties, I scroll down to the bottom, and I need to enable static website hosting, meaning that I want this website to files to be hosted as a website. It will ask me for the default page. So the default, that's the first page, the landing page, is index.html. So once it accesses the folder, it knows that it's to load the index.html. You can leave every other option, leave every other thing optional. They are optional. Then we come to permissions. Now permissions are one of the greatest attributes of S3. So you need to give the bucket policies. So this is where you set who has access or what resources can access the bucket. So in our previous class, where we're talking about I am user, we've seen how to attach policy, we've seen how to create or generate policies, and that's the same type of policy we want to generate here. So I'll just be copying a policy JSON script that would be used for this class. Okay, from the GitHub, you can follow the S3 folder. You see the steps. When you get to the steps, so these are the policy document, the policy script I want to copy. So you can just click on edit so that you can have it in the right format. Scroll to the bottom and copy. So you might wanna. So this is what I want to copy into this place. So I'll edit the policy. And the whole idea about creating this policy is to ensure that you have the right statement. So everything should be left the same except for this name. The name has to be the same with your bucket name. So in this case, it is weatherborn. And once this has been done, you save changes. And I go back to my properties in order to copy the website address. So if I copy this, that's the endpoint, and I paste on the browser and hit enter, the Weatherborn website is loaded. So this is the website. These are the website files that was uploaded, and as you can see, I can navigate all through the pages of this website as it is. So this page is not an HTML page, that's why you're getting that error. However, just so that you understand that you can host your basic website, your static website, using S3 buckets. So that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next.